This is Talking Foreign Policy, a critical look at Canada's role abroad, and I'm Eve Engler. Today we're going to discuss a shift in NDP policy on Palestine. At the French language debate Wednesday night, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh went out of his way to target Mark Carney to ask him why he's flip-flopping on using the word genocide, pressing him that it's a genocide in Gaza and demanding he employ that word. Simultaneously, Singh criticized fairly aggressively Pierre Poilievre, conservative leaders claim that UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, was a terrorist organization. Singh referred to that as dégueulasse or disgusting. To discuss these recent developments in NDP Palestine policy, we have a former NDP candidate in Kitchener, Beisan Zubi, who's also a Palestinian Canadian. First of all, thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy. And can you just sort of describe what happened on the Palestine question last night with Singh, and also you posted about what journalists should do to follow up with Mark Carney. Can you kind of just sort of describe that?
Yeah, so basically last night during the French debate, and I haven't actually listened to the French audio, I just listened to the translated version, but there was an exchange between Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh, where Jagmeet pressed Carney, which I think is maybe the first time that I've seen somebody push the liberals at all on naming what is happening in Gaza as a genocide. And Carney's response was that he didn't want to use the term to politicize the situation. That was kind of his answer. And I found that very interesting considering this was a political debate and the situation is political. Canada is offering political cover to Israel to continue killing. Just today I saw just so many images of children killed in their tents as they were sleeping. Again and again and again, day by day, we keep seeing this coming out of Gaza. And the idea that this is apolitical is honestly just ridiculous. But I think what Carney actually meant was that Jagmeet was trying to use the situation politically against Carney. And I think that that is a really, really dangerous accusation. Because everyone, on that stage is fighting for political trust and supposed to earn political trust. But B, it also impugns the motives of Canadians who are calling this what this is, a genocide, who are Amnesty, the UN, all of these large and reputable organizations that have gone on the record of calling this a genocide. So it's saying we're all just politicizing this word. All of us are cynically employing this word, and it's not that. So there's some serious implications. I mean, I will note that he did, I wouldn't say it's a flip-flop, but from what I remember, Trudeau's response when asked specifically about the South Africa case in front of the ICJ naming it as genocide, he said that they disagreed with the premise, and the premise of that being genocide. So this is a slight shift, I would say, from disagreeing with the premise to taking a cause with the word in the moment, I think is kind of what Carney was trying to say. But still, like if the prime minister can't be political, then who can? Like who are we electing to defend political rights, human rights, if not the prime minister?
Yeah, well, Carney, after Heckler referred to it as genocide last week, Carney basically said he agreed or seemed to agree with
I
this.
know. He said, I know, or something. Yes, but like, I get it. But then he disagreed. Then he changed. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, then he walked it back,
yeah.
sort of the next day, not a complete walk back, but mostly walk back, and then of course at the debate. Now, so the NDP, we've seen it's like I don't exactly the most updated numbers, like 160 candidates who've done the Vote Palestine pledge. I get regular emails from Nikki Ashton about the campaigning around the all these Israel-focused charities getting subsidized to support settlements, the Israeli military, racist organizations, violating Canada Revenue Agency regulations. You have Heather McPherson, who's a fairly establishment NDP person, who's, of course, the foreign affairs critic, who's been pushing on Palestine a fair bit over the past year and a half. So I'd say that we've seen a real shift within the party. What's your sort of assessment of that as somebody who ran, I believe it was in the 2021 election, obviously for the NDP and how things have sort of shifted within the party?
Well, I can give even more context because I started working for the NDP out of undergrad. And so I worked when Jack Layton was still the leader, then for Mulcair, and then I left the party. So if you even just kind of relate the deep chill on even mentioning Palestinian human rights a decade ago within the party because of the perceived electoral threat of showing any kind of solidarity with Palestinians to now, that to me is such a remarkable change. And I do think that that change has been pushed by the membership. There was a really critical NDP like annual general meeting, membership meeting that made the NDP change its policy to be one that was actually in solidarity with Palestinians. And even though there was a lot of pressure and a lot of kind of uh, tricks around that, it did pass and it passed overwhelmingly. So from that point, I became an NDP candidate. I was the only NDP candidate that is Palestinian in the 2021 election. And I was honestly not sure if I would pass vetting, even as a former employee and as a longtime NDP kind of member. I was not sure that they would even allow a Palestinian to be on the ballot. And so that was not the case. I passed vetting. I was explicitly pro-Palestinian during that campaign. I never really heard anything, stopping me from doing that from the party or even kind of talking me down or warning me about any kind of post or anything like that. So I guess what I would say is that I think in Canada, we have kind of accepted it and kind of internalized this idea that Palestinian solidarity isn't a winning issue and isn't something that people are wanting to support and that can actually grow your legitimacy and your popularity. And I think what we're seeing is that's fundamentally untrue. People around this country are horrified. Like, I'm Palestinian and I'm obviously devastated, but non-Palestinians are watching the same things that I'm watching, and they are devastated and they are struggling to understand how Canada in 2025, 2024, 2023 can be complicit and, ignore and justify and normalize this kind of widespread, humanitarian suffering, like people, children, schools, men, women, like the suffering is universal in Gaza and it's in the West Bank. And so I think when people um, are actually being given the opportunity to show that support for Palestinians is electorally not suicide, which I think was the prevailing idea in Canadian politics for the longest time. You're seeing pro-Palestinian candidates. And I also don't want to it's not that many, but like 14 or 15 liberal MPs have also signed that Vote Palestine pledge, including like 10 incumbents. So these are people who are already MPs who are saying that they will support a two-way arms embargo, that they do think that anti-Palestinian racism is real and in Canada and all of these things. So even that is a step for the party or for the Liberal Party. And I think that those MPs also recognize that that's what the people that they represent want from them, that it's very important to the constituencies that they are in Ottawa serving, that they say and that they vote for and that they uphold. So it's not just the NDP that's having the shift. It's just that the NDP shift, I think, has been quite, I mean, as a leftist party, it should be, and it should be more, to be honest, but it has been quite different from even what the situation was within the party 10 years ago. So we have to kind of, look at that kind of longer term picture of even before 2021 to see just how much stuff has changed in recent memory.
And I want to actually get into a little bit of that. So in 2021, there's this a really terrible interview that Singh did with the CBC where he's asked about Palestinians. He refuses to use the word Palestinian and refers to anti-Semitism like 4 times. It created a huge
Oof.
kerfuffle. It was really horrible. It was really deeply anti-Palestinian interview. It created quite a backlash. It was in the lead up to the convention. If you go back to that, Singh's foreign affairs critic, Hélène Lavadière, she went and spoke at AIPAC down in Washington. She went on a Jewish National Fund, explicitly racist colonial organization, which actually lost its charitable status. She went on a JNF event when she was in Israel. You mentioned Thomas Mulcair. He once said, the predecessor of Singh, he once said, I support Israel in all situations and all circumstances. If you go back even further historically, someone like Stephen Lewis, who's a sort of famed, NDP stalwart, considered great humanitarian, when he was the leader of the NDP in Ontario, he actually pushed to ban a whole UN conference that was supposed to take place in Toronto because the year earlier the PLO got observer status to the UN, and there was a possibility that a PLO representative might attend that conference. The conference had nothing to do with Palestine. It was just on the basis that a PLO representative might attend the conference, and this big prestigious conference for Toronto, and the NDP leaders calling for it to be shut down. Tommy Douglas, of course, maybe the most famous NDP leader, he once said in 1975, he said, Israel was like a light set upon a hill, the light of democracy in a night of darkness. And the main criticism of Israel has not been a desire for land. The main enmity against Israel is that she has been an affront to those nations who do not treat their people and their workers as well as Israel has treated hers. That, of course, is 8 years into the illegal occupation in the West Bank and Gaza. 30 some odd years after the Nakba, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So this is some of the background, some of the history that is important. While we should be critical of the NDP for maybe not going further, this is some of the background. This is the historical ethos of Zionism within the party. Now, maybe just sort of as a final kind of question, and so one of the things I found interesting in looking at the response to Singh's comments, I didn't watch the full debate. I did listen to it in French. Singh seemed to go out of his way to go at Carney on the genocide question. This was clearly pre-planned. As you mentioned, this was electoralist in the sense that he sees an electoral upside in making that criticism of Carney, that there are, fence sitters, possibly vote Liberal, possibly vote NDP, that this issue matters to them. Now, the other side I found interesting, which is the fact that the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, B'nai B'rith, and Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, they haven't criticized Singh in response to doing this. So what I take from that is they see criticizing Singh as actually benefiting him in this moment, and that it would draw more attention to his comment about the genocide and actually benefit the NDP in this. Yeah. So what's your, I don't know, just sort of your assessment of a bit of what I said there, and the lack of pushback from the Israel lobby on this question.
I honestly, I mean, I try not to focus too much on what Israeli lobby groups are doing and saying. Even if they aren't pushing back publicly, I cannot say what they are saying and doing in private. And so I would be surprised if like nothing came out of them on this subject at all. But I think what's more important to kind of realize is that this kind of when I, use the word genocide, like we have so much academic and humanitarian and legal scholarship behind us supporting that distinction and that kind of determination, right? This isn't an opinion, it's not a feeling. And so when groups want to push anti-evidence, fact-based kind of ideological arguments so publicly, they they're doing it at a great risk. So I don't know. Maybe they made the calculation not this time. This wasn't the one. Maybe if the same thing comes up in the English debate, that would be a more kind of threatening proposition for them. I'm not sure. I don't know how well covered this moment was on mainstream media. I don't know if it was as kind of notable, on the CBC like news network as it was for me and my kind of, priorities. And so I can't really speak to that. I just know like right now in Canada, there is a shift happening. And I can't even tell you when I ran in 2021, I also signed the Vote Palestine pledge. It was not, there were no hundreds of candidates on that list with me. And so even just the way that the public, consciousness around Palestine, around Palestinian human rights, around their connection to other human rights, and how, we need to be kind of consistent in upholding all human rights, has changed so dramatically. I'm wondering if those groups are shifting their approach, their strategies to deal with this new reality. Because I don't think that their previous approaches have been helpful. I think they've actually been harmful. I think they have, diluted the understanding of anti-Semitism in our society, and they have directly contributed to that, which is harming Jewish people, of course, but like also harming their ability to access networks of power and to remain powerful in political discourse. And so maybe they're calculating their next steps. Maybe they are waiting for something, more kind of jump onable to happen. I don't know. But I do think, it's 3 p.m. the next day. Probably if they were going to have a targeted response, a public response, it probably would have come by now.
Yeah, and I think that the big picture for those of us who care about justice is that the NDP's steps forward on this are in response to the activism. The fact that there was 20,000 people marching in Ottawa last
Last
weekend
week.
is, amidst hundreds and hundreds of demos that have been happened over the past 18,
Yeah.
so many smears, so much, state repression. People are still mobilized,
Yeah.
and hearing stories about candidates hearing the question about Palestine when they go door knocking. That's, I think, why Singh is seeing an electoral upside, which is, of course, is those of us who've been involved in that deserve a pat on the back. Lots more needs to be done. Thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy.
Thanks for having me.